Hello guys, in this video we are going to see how to face Salesforce Business Analyst Interview. So I'm just going to show you guys what are the basic questions that can be asked in the Business Analyst Interview so that it will be like somewhat I'll be able to help to clear your next upcoming interview. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, what is the role of a Salesforce Business Analyst? So you need not to answer this one as a elaborate one, but you just it's not like a Salesforce business analyst is going to do a different role than a normal business analyst. So you can just respond with a, simple definition of a business analyst. Something like a role of business analyst is to understand the business requirements, integrate them with the technology, and act as a bridge between various stakeholders. So just keep it simple. So that's all it is. And yeah, let's move on to the next one. What are some of the most important skills for a Salesforce business analyst? So what are all the skills required? So uh, again, this is another question that is pretty common in our business analyst interviews. It is just to check so what are all the skills that you have and what are the skills that you're going to use in your day-to-day job, right? So yeah, again, keep it simple, like uh, analytical thinking and decision making, business and industry knowledge, business processes and management, technical and soft skills, problem solving and negotiation skills. So these are pretty basic skills that are required in any business analyst career. It's not particularly for Salesforce, but yeah, it's pretty common, and just keep it simple. And if they are asking any questions on this one, then you can just elaborate like um, how do you do analytical thinking, or can you give some examples where you applied your analytical thinking skills? So you can just be ready for these kind of questions when you're answering some of the skills that you have for these questions, right? Yeah, and yeah, let's move on to the next one. And what's your experience working with the data analysis tools? So we need to have some experience, hands-on experience in doing data analysis as a business analyst, right? So you have the data, and how do you analyze the data? If it is like uh, a simple like just a 10 line of records in Excel sheet, then it is pretty simple to analyze. Okay, so these are the data, and this is the issue, and there is some data repetition or something like this. So you can do the data analysis if the data is so small. Imagine you having a very big data, like a terabyte of data, and you cannot go line by line analyzing those data, right? So for that, we have to use any of the tool like Tableau or Power BI or yeah, Microsoft Excel. So for this question, you have to answer like what are the tools that you use and your recent experience while you're doing your analysis. Like what are the pros and cons of the tool. So that gives your interviewer that you have a hands-on experience on the tool, and you know how to get around with the tools. Like when when you're handling a huge chunk of data. So you have to be elaborate on this one to say what's your experience with the tool. So yeah, and let's move to the next. So again, what is the requirement elicitation? This is another basic questions on the business analyst interview. So it's nothing but a technique that is used for getting the information from the users and the stakeholders. Strategies or approaches to collaborate with users or client directly. So yeah, and so these are the list of techniques that can be used while you're doing your requirement elicitation. like document analysis, questionnaire or surveys, interviews, observations and workshops, prototyping, and brainstorming. So I'm going to go over each of the one in detail in the next screens. So let's first see about document analysis. What's document analysis? It's a technique, one of the most effective ways for kickstarting the requirement elicitation phase. So you will get all the documents that they have for that particular application or for the particular project, so you can review the document, like what is the user requirement specification or business requirements, and how they solved it, and what are all the solutions they have used on this particular applications, so that you can review each and everything. It just means of gathering information from before you're proceeding with the next steps, like scheduling interviews or other elicitation sessions, as we saw in the earlier page. So document analysis is nothing but just a base prerequisite for your next phases in that elicitation techniques. So that's that. The next one is questionnaire or surveys. The survey or questionnaire can be very useful in gathering opinions and information from the multiple sources. Say, in case you don't want to conduct an in person interview or a brainstorming session or some other illustration techniques, but again, it is just purely depends on a specific situation that you're handling, right? So, in each and every scenario, you have to use a different illustration techniques. So, we are just going to see how, like, what is the questionnaire and surveys. So in such cases, like you don't want to gather multiple people in a meeting room to discuss about something. So in that case, but at the same time, you want to get each and every person's input for few of the questions that you have from the from your initial document analysis. The surveys or questionnaire can be those are two types, like close-ended and open-ended. The close-ended is nothing but we are just a predefined set of answers like yes or no, or multiple choice selection, something like that. So that we are not allowing the users to give their own opinion about the questions that we have. It's like just say yes or no or select the options that we have. So that's a close-ended type of surveys. The open-ended is like more we are giving some flexibility to the end user, like the business stakeholders, to give their comments for the questions that we have. So sometimes we need to get their comments in a elaborate or in a detailed way, so that we can use open-ended surveys. Again, it's up to the situations or up to the scenario that you are in. So that's how the surveys work. The next one is the interviews. It is a systematic approach designed to elicit business analysis information from a person or a group of people by talking to the interviewee, asking relevant questions, and documenting the responses. So you can gather a group of people or a particular person who is having the relevant knowledge on what what was your requirements like, right? So if you have such a questions in particular area, you can just bring certain group of people from that area, so that you can better understand the requirements. So it can be a structured interview or an unstructured interview. So structured interview, it's like you have a predefined questions, and you can ask and get those questions clarified. In unstructured interview, it's not like we have a predefined set of questions. It may vary based on the stakeholder responses and the interactions. So that's how the interviews in the elicitation techniques. Next, Let's move on to the observation. So observation requires a business analyst to go and look at the work. For example, observing the business process in the scope of project. So it's like job shadowing, like go sit with the users and see what they are doing as part of their day-to-day activities. So based on those observation, you can document from your observations, and yeah, you can take it from there. So this is one kind of requirement elicitation technique. The next one is prototyping. So it is just creating a potential graphical interface that could be used to solve a problem by demonstrating that to the business users and getting their feedback. So this is one of the technique that can be used, that can be combined with another techniques, like, so if you're in a in-person interviews, you can use this prototype to get their comments. So it can be combined. So that's how we can use this prototyping and the brainstorming. So this technique is simply announcing a topic or posing a question, inviting a past participants to discuss ideas. So yeah, it's just gathering a group of people and just do the brainstorming sessions on the topics that you wanted to discuss with. These are pretty like these are the requirement elicitation techniques, and yeah, you can elaborate it if at all they are asking a specific kind of things, like what you do in brainstorming sessions, or what you do in your in-person interviews, or how do you document all those things. So you can just elaborate the techniques that you use and the benefits of those techniques in your earlier projects or previous projects. So yeah, that can be useful in answering these questions. And moving to the next topic, what is user stories? So yeah, user story is the smallest unit of work in the agile framework. So it's not a feature, but an end goal that the user has when using the software. The user story will convey what the user wants to achieve and states it in a simple and a non-technical way. So yeah, that's that. So how can we write user stories? So user stories typically follow a simple template that captures the user and the goal that the user has in a simple and non-technical format. So for example, this is a syntax of for writing a story as a who is the user, like as a system admin or as a um, customer service representative, something like that. So who is the user? So that should come in the type of user or role. And I want to perform this action. I want to perform a password reset, or I want to create a report, or I want to send an email. So what is the action that you are going to do? You have to insert in the I want section, and so that what you're going to achieve. So I want to do a password reset so that users can log in. So that's how you have to build your user stories. So all your user stories has to be in this format. And so the listed items here, they used to call this as a invest methodology. So I stands for independent, negotiable, valuable, estimatable, small, and testable. So all the user stories we write should have all this items. So independent is like developer should be able to implement the user stories in any sequence. So that's how it should be. And they're negotiable. Stories should avoid too much detail and be kept flexible, so that yeah, it can be so if it is flexible, then you can change that accordingly, right? So if you're so specific and it is having too much detail, then uh, yeah, it cannot be flexible at the time. So it has to be flexible so that it can be yeah, we need to avoid too much detail there. and valuable. Users get some value from that story, so that's valuable. Estimatable. A team can use them to plan project lines. So your user story has to be in a format, or it has some values that can be used while they're estimating their project timeline. So it should be there. And smaller user stories are easier to estimate than the larger ones. As I said, it has to be flexible and small, not too much details, and testable. Everyone should be able to document the definition of 10, like how, what is the acceptance criteria, something like that. So uh, these are the things that we have to like, yeah, these things are has to be there while you're writing your user story, or you have to consider these things while you're writing your user story. So yeah, uh, that's how it is. And I have just gave some sample user stories. Like, as a business user, I need to access the account object so that I can see what opportunities are open on a given account. So as who is the user, that is a business user, I need to, what I'm going to do with that thing, like I need to access the account object, so that what I'm going to do, so that I can see what opportunities are on an open given account. So likewise, as a customer care representative, I want to be able to take ownership of the new cases and communicate with the customer so that I can provide high touch customer experiences. As a sales representative, I need the ability to take ownership of a new lead and document the progress so that I can provide consistent insight to my pipeline. So, yeah, these are some sample user stories. And the next thing would be like, they might be expecting you to know about what is the RACI chat. So, RACI is nothing but responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So while you're performing any of the actions, you should know who should be contact, or who is the responsible team, or who is the accountable person, or whom should be consulted with before we perform that action, and whom should we inform. So every organization, every company will have this RACI chart. So you just wanted to use the RACI chart accordingly. So responsible is nothing but the team member does the work, who complete the work to complete the task. So that's the person who is responsible for the task, and accountable, the person who delegates the work and is the last one to review the task or deliverable before it's deemed to complete. So that that's is the accountable definition. And yeah, consulted and informed. So these are, so just you have to know how to use this lazy chart when you're working as a business analyst. And this is another important thing. So what are all the different documents that business analyst does require? So initiation document, there is just a project initiation document and gap analysis. So if you're performing gap analysis between a legacy and the new application, or yeah, so you have to have that gap analysis document, and system requirement specification. What is the requirement for system specifications, and change request document, how we are going to proceed with the change request when we are moving our changes from development to production, something like that. And business requirement document is like what business is required as part of that particular project or particular story, or uh, but for the particular application requirement. So yeah, that business requirement will have all the requirements from the business. And functional requirement is like what the functionality, like, so business requirement will be in high level, and the functional requirement will be in a detail, and use case specification and the requirement traceability. So these are some different documents that we should be aware of. And I think these are the basic questions that I thought of. but showing it to you guys. Like these are the basic questions that may come up with the business analyst interviews frequently. So and let me know if you want to cover any other topics, or if you want to elaborate any of the existing one that I have explained in this video. Just let me know in the comments, and yeah, create a next video on that one. All right, and please feel free to ask me if you have any questions. And that's all I have for this video. All right, thank you. Bye bye.